broken moon hung over Remnant like a shattered promise, its fractured face casting uneven silver light across Forever Fall's crimson forest. Most nights, the trees stood silent beneath that cosmic wound. Tonight, reality itself screamed. The dimensional tear opened without ceremony, a slash of impossible geometry that violated the space between Vale's outskirts and something else entirely. Purple lightning that had never touched Remnant's atmosphere crackled through the wound, carrying the scent of gunpowder, roses that didn't grow in any kingdom, and something ancient that made the nearby Grimm pause in their eternal wandering. Then she fell through, trailing black feathers that dissolved into motes of light before touching the ground. Bayonetta hit the forest floor with predatory grace. One hand already extended as momentum translated into a three-point landing that cracked the earth beneath her heels. Her guns, Scarborough Fair, gleamed in the moonlight, still warm from a battle in a dimension she could no longer sense. The Umbra Witch rose slowly, taking in the crimson leaves, the shattered moon, and the distinct absence of the ambient spiritual energy that had defined her existence for centuries. "Well," she purred, adjusting her glasses with one finger. "This is new." The forest held its breath. Then the Beowolves attacked. 3 of them, bone-white masks gleaming, red eyes fixed on the woman who radiated something they couldn't comprehend, but instinctively feared. They'd been drawn by the dimensional breach's violent energy, by the spike of something not quite negative emotion that accompanied her arrival. Now they lunged with slavering jaws and claws designed to tear through aura-protected flesh. Bayonetta's smile was all teeth and no warmth. Her fingers twitched, muscle memory initiating witch time. And the world hiccuped. Time didn't stop. It stuttered, slowed for perhaps a second before reality snapped back like an overtaxed rubber band. The temporal manipulation she'd performed thousands of times before drained something from her core that felt wrong, incomplete, as though she'd tried to breathe in a room with half the oxygen. But a second was eternity for an Umbra Witch. She danced between the frozen, then lurching Grimm, guns singing their 4-part harmony. Bullets found eyes, throats, the gaps in bone armor. Her hair, her true weapon, lashed out in whip cracks that should have summoned demon limbs to crush these pathetic creatures. Instead, the wicked weave manifested at half strength, spectral and flickering, landing blows that scattered the Beowolves, but didn't annihilate them as intended. "Fascinating," Bayonetta murmured, back-flipping over a retaliatory swipe. "No Purgatorio, no proper demon summoning. This dimension has rules." She landed in a crouch, then exploded upward with a rising kick that connected with the lead Beowulf's jaw. The creature dissipated into black smoke, and she filed that information away. They die permanently, no regeneration, simple dissolution. The remaining 2 circled warily, and she noted their hesitation. These soulless monsters could learn. Her next volley ended them both. As the smoke cleared, Bayonetta holstered her guns and examined her hands. The Umbran magic still pulsed beneath her skin, but it felt muted, struggling against this world's fundamental nature like a flame trying to burn underwater. No angels, no demons, no Purgatorio. She touched her lunar tear necklace, feeling its familiar weight. But there's something here. That girl-shaped energy these creatures attacked, the way they dissolved. This world has its own rules for souls and power. A branch cracked behind her. Bayonetta spun, guns drawn, to find a young girl in a red cloak perched on a fallen log, silver eyes wide with unconcealed wonder. The massive scythe rifle hybrid on her back marked her as either very dangerous or very foolish, possibly both. "That," the girl breathed, "was amazing. The way you moved, and your guns, and the hair thing. Wait, was that your hair? Can you teach me that? I'm Ruby, Ruby Rose. Are you a huntress? You have to be a huntress. Nobody fights Grimm like that unless they're..." "Grimm," Bayonetta interrupted, one perfect eyebrow arched. Is that what those tedious creatures are called? Ruby blinked. You don't know what Grimm are? Where are you from? The Umbra Witch's smile held secrets that predated kingdoms. Somewhere very far away, little Rose. And you are? I told you, I'm Ruby. I'm training at Beacon Academy to be a huntress. The girl's enthusiasm was almost weaponized. You should come with me. Professor Ozpin will want to meet you, especially if you can fight like that without aura, and my team is going to flip when they see your weapons and… Without what? Ruby's excited chatter stopped. She stared at Bayonetta like the witch had just claimed the moon was whole. Aura. You know, the manifestation of your soul. The thing that keeps you alive in combat. You seriously don't have aura unlocked. Bayonetta considered the girl, her genuine concern, her open curiosity, the way she'd apparently watched a stranger obliterate 3 monsters and decided friendship was the appropriate response. Irritating, but potentially useful. I have something, the witch said carefully, but I suspect your aura operates on different principles than my magic. Tell me about this Beacon Academy. Ruby's grin could have powered a city. Oh, you're going to love it! As the girl launched into an explanation involving teams, tournaments, and transforming weapons, Bayonetta gazed at the shattered moon and felt the absence of everything she'd known. No lumen sages to fight, no angels to destroy, no John standing at her back. Just this strange world with soulless monsters, impossibly young warriors, and rules she didn't yet understand. But the Umbra Witch had survived worse than displacement. She'd adapt. She always did. And perhaps this Beacon Academy would provide answers about why her magic felt like it was trying to operate in a foreign language. Lead the way, little Rose, Bayonetta said, her tone making the diminutive sound like an endearment. Let's see what this world has to offer. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. Keep moving forward. Ruby practically vibrated with excitement as she led the mysterious woman toward the lights of Vytal, already planning how to explain this to her team. Behind them, the forest returned to silence, but the Grimm that remained in the shadows watched the departing figures with something almost like uncertainty. The Umbra Witch had arrived on Remnant. The cycles of hope and despair were about to encounter something they had no framework to contain. The bullhead transport's interior lights cast harsh shadows across Bayonetta's face as she studied her unlikely guide. Ruby had maintained a stream of consciousness monologue for the entire flight from Foreverfall to Beacon Academy, explaining dust types, semblances, the 4 kingdoms, and Grimm behavior with the sort of manic enthusiasm usually reserved for particularly excitable puppies. And then Yang punched the Ursa so hard its head came off, which shouldn't even be possible, but she was so mad because it hurt me, and that's when her semblance really, oh, we're here. Beacon Academy rose from its cliffside perch, like something from a fairy tale, all towers and stonework bathed in moonlight. Bayonetta recognized fortress architecture when she saw it. This was a place built to withstand sieges, dressed up in academic pretense. The landing pad received them with practiced efficiency, and Ruby practically dragged her toward the main building. The team's probably still in the library. Weiss has been freaking out about the Vytal festival tournament brackets, and Blake's helping her study opponents, and Yang's probably asleep on a book by now. They burst into a warmth-lit common area, where 3 young women looked up from scattered papers and scroll screens. Bayonetta catalogued them in an instant. The white-haired girl with the rapier and the posture of nobility, the blonde brawler with eyes that tracked movement like a predator, and the black-haired girl with a bow that didn't quite hide the feline airs beneath. All 3 stared. Ruby, the white-haired girl, Weiss, clearly, said with forced patience, "Please tell me you didn't adopt another stray." "She's not a stray," Ruby protested. "She's, The girl realized she'd never actually gotten a name. Bayonetta, the witch supplied, examining her nails with deliberate nonchalance. Charmed, I'm sure. Yang's eyes flickered from purple to red for just a moment. Threat assessment, Bayonetta noted. You dress like that for combat? The Umbra Witch glanced down at her form-fitting suit, the design that left little to imagination, but everything to lethality. Darling, I've toppled celestial hierarchies in these heels. I think I can manage your little monster problem. Grimm, Blake corrected quietly, her bow twitching. They're called Grimm, and if you fought them without aura, you're either incredibly skilled or incredibly lucky. Let's say both and move on. Bayonetta settled into a chair with fluid grace, crossing her legs. Your enthusiastic friend mentioned something about an academy. I find myself in need of orientation to local customs. Weiss's expression suggested she'd rather fight another Armagigas. Ruby, you brought a complete stranger to our dormitory area without clearance, without informing Professor Goodwitch, and without any sense of protocol. She killed 3 Beowolves in like 5 seconds. That doesn't... With her hair. The room fell silent. Yang leaned forward. Okay, that I want to see. Blake's eyes hadn't left Bayonetta, and the witch recognized that particular brand of wariness. Someone who'd learned to spot predators. You're not from any of the kingdoms. Your clothes, your weapons, even the way you hold yourself. Where are you really from? Sharp girl. Bayonetta smiled. Would you believe another dimension entirely? No, Weiss said flatly. Yes, Ruby contradicted immediately. Yang and Blake exchanged glances. Maybe, they offered simultaneously. Before Bayonetta could elaborate, the door opened to admit a woman whose silver hair matched her severe expression. Glinda Goodwitch entered like a particularly strict headmistress, materializing to catch students breaking curfew, her riding crop already raised in what was probably habitual disapproval. Miss Rose, I received reports of an unauthorized landing and... She stopped, taking in Bayonetta's presence. Her eyes narrowed. Who are you, and how did you access Academy grounds? I flew in with Little Red Riding Hood here, Bayonetta said, gesturing lazily at Ruby. Terribly informal, I know, but dimensional displacement doesn't follow visiting hours. Glinda's grip on her crop tightened. The telekinetic semblance flared around her, visible as purple glyphs, and Bayonetta felt the air pressure shift. Interesting. This world's magic manifested through individual expression rather than universal laws. Dimensional displacement, Glinda repeated, her tone suggesting she'd heard quite enough nonsense for one evening. Miss Rose, is this another one of your... She's telling the truth, Ruby insisted. I saw her appear in Forever Fall. There was this purple lightning thing and feathers, and she didn't even have aura, but she still destroyed the Grimm and... Enough. A new voice, quiet but carrying absolute authority. The man who entered moved like he had all the time in the world and knew it. Silver-haired, cane in hand, small glasses perched on his nose. He radiated the particular danger of someone who'd forgotten more about violence than most would ever learn. Professor Ozpin, Bayonetta presumed. The immortal reincarnator Ruby had mentioned, though the girl didn't realize she'd revealed more than intended with her innocent chatter about old legends. Their eyes met, and Bayonetta saw recognition flare in his expression. Not of her specifically, but of what she represented. Ancient magic, power that predated modern frameworks, something that didn't fit Remnant's carefully maintained order. Miss Bayonetta, he said, the name rolling off his tongue like he'd confirmed it through means beyond hearing. Welcome to Beacon Academy. I believe we have much to discuss. I believe you're right. The witch stood, matching his measured calm. Your student mentioned something about aura. I find myself adapting to local conditions. Ozpin's slight smile suggested volumes. Then perhaps we should begin with an examination. Glinda, if you would escort our teams to their dormitories, I'll handle our unexpected guest personally." Weiss looked scandalized. Yang looked impressed. Blake looked suspicious. Ruby looked delighted. As Glinda herded the protesting girls away, Ruby's "But I found her" echoing down the corridor, Ozpin gestured for Bayonetta to follow. They walked through stone hallways that had seen centuries, their footsteps creating odd harmony, his measured pace, her distinctive heel clicks. "You're not the first anomaly to arrive at Beacon," Ozpin said conversationally, "but you may be the most powerful. I can sense it. Whatever magic you possess, it's straining against Remnant's laws like water trying to flow uphill." "Perceptive." Bayonetta didn't bother with false modesty. "This world lacks certain spiritual infrastructure my abilities require. I'm operating at diminished capacity." "How diminished?" she considered. Enough to be irritating, not enough to be helpless. They entered his office, a tower room with clockwork mechanisms and windows overlooking the sleeping academy. Ozpin poured 2 mugs of hot chocolate without asking, and Bayonetta accepted hers with bemused appreciation. "I'm going to propose something unusual," he said. "You need to understand Remnant's power system to operate effectively. I need to understand what you are and whether you pose a threat to my students. And if I do, then we'll address that problem when it arises." He sipped his chocolate. "But I don't think you do. Ruby is an excellent judge of character for all her enthusiasm. She wouldn't have brought a genuine threat into her team's sanctuary." Bayonetta laughed, genuine and surprised. "You're either very trusting or very confident in your ability to handle threats." "Both." Ozpin set down his mug. "I propose we unlock your aura properly. It will help stabilize your magic within Remnant's framework and give us both valuable information about how your power integrates with our world's laws." "And you just happen to have this ability?" "I've had considerable practice." Something ancient and tired flickered in his expression. "Shall we begin?" The Umbra Witch studied this strange headmaster who fought an immortal war against an unkillable queen, who built schools to train child soldiers and called it salvation, who looked at her and saw opportunity rather than threat. She could work with this. Why not? Bayonetta extended her hand. "Let's see what happens when Umbran witchcraft meets Remnant's soul." Ozpin's hand closed over hers and his aura flared silver green. "Close your eyes and focus on your soul. This may feel unusual." The incantation began. "For it is in passing that we achieve immortality. Through this, we become a paragon of virtue and glory to rise above all." Bayonetta felt something unlock inside her chest. Not new, but recognized. Her magic suddenly finding purchase in Remnant's framework. The Umbran power that had been struggling to manifest now had a native channel wrapping around this world's concept of soul, like a vine finding a trellis. Her eyes snapped open, glowing violet gold. Around her, a purple-black aura manifested, shot through with patterns that looked like demonic contract sigils. The temperature dropped. Somewhere in Vale, every Grimm within a mile radius turned toward Beacon Academy. And high in Atlas, monitoring feeds through hijacked CCT access. Cinder Fall's eyes widened as she felt something impossible ripple through her stolen maiden power. "Fascinating," Ozpin murmured, completely unruffled. "You have aura now, but it's not quite human, is it?" Bayonetta flexed her fingers, feeling power flow properly for the first time since arriving. Which time would work now? Wicked Weave would manifest fully. Her demon summoning might even... "No," she agreed, smiling like a cat in cream. "But then again, darling, I never claimed to be human." The training room beneath Beacon Academy had seen its share of semblance awakenings, weapons testing, and students pushing their limits. It had never seen anything quite like Bayonetta's integration of Umbran witchcraft with Remnant's aura system. "Again," Glinda commanded from the observation platform, her scroll recording every detail. And this time, try not to create a localized gravity anomaly. Bayonetta adjusted her glasses, her newly manifested aura shimmering around her like heat distortion mixed with purple-black smoke. The integration had been interesting. Ozpin's aura unlocking had given her power a native channel to operate through, but combining Umbran magic with soul-based energy produced effects neither of them had anticipated. 3 training drones hovered before her. Atlas military surplus reprogrammed for combat simulation. She'd destroyed the first set in under 30 seconds. The second set had lasted almost a minute before her wicked weave reduced them to scrap. Glinda had insisted on understanding her capabilities before allowing her anywhere near actual students. Practical, if somewhat insulting. The drones activated, firing training rounds, rubber bullets backed by enough force to bruise even through aura. Bayonetta moved, and Witch Time activated. This time, it worked properly. The world didn't just slow, it crystallized into amber honey stillness, frozen in the moment of her perfect dodge. But unlike before, the temporal manipulation didn't drain her. The aura framework gave Witch Time something to feed on, converting soul energy into localized time dilation with efficiency that made her laugh aloud. She walked between frozen bullets, her heels clicking on the training floor, and placed bullets of her own into each drone's central processor. When she released the technique, reality snapped back and 3 training drones exploded simultaneously in showers of sparks. 38 seconds of sustained temporal manipulation, Glinda reported, her tone caught between impressed and concerned. That's unprecedented. Most speed-based semblances last 3 to 5 seconds maximum before aura depletion becomes critical. I'm not using a semblance, darling. Bayonetta holstered Scarborough fare with practiced flourish. I'm using magic that predates your world's naming conventions. The aura merely provides a stable foundation. Ozpin descended the stairs from the observation platform, his cane clicking in rhythm with his steps. He'd been watching with the intensity of someone conducting a scientific experiment and a strategic assessment simultaneously. Your wicked weave technique, he said, the hair manifestation that summons demon limbs. Can you demonstrate it again? Preferably without destroying Academy property this time. The witch smirked. Her hair, lengthened and enhanced through Umbran pact magic, responded to her will, extending from her body in black tendrils that wove together mid-air. In her original dimension, this would summon Madama Butterfly's limbs directly from Inferno. Here, without that dimensional connection, the wicked weave had to manifest differently. The hair formed into a massive spectral fist, purple-black energy crackling around it like contained lightning. It was aura-powered now, her soul energy shaped through demonic contract patterns burned into her very being. The fist slammed into the reinforced training floor and left a crater 3 feet deep. Still quite effective, she noted, though I notice the summoning is more direct rather than pulling from Inferno. Interesting adaptation. Everything about you is an adaptation, Glinda observed, her scroll stylus moving rapidly. Your aura signature is unlike anything in the database. There are patterns that resemble Maiden energy, but more compact, controlled. Bayonetta's eyes narrowed. Maiden energy. Ozpin and Glinda exchanged glances, the kind of look that spoke of classified information and need-to-know basis. The headmaster sighed. Something we'll discuss later. For now, I'm satisfied you can operate on Remnant without destabilizing local reality. He gestured toward the exit. Classes begin in 3 hours. I've arranged temporary quarters in the faculty wing and scheduled you for an introductory lecture on Grimm ecology. If you're to remain at Beacon, you should understand what we face. Remain? Bayonetta raised one perfect eyebrow. Presumptuous, Professor. I haven't decided to join your little warrior academy. Haven't you? His slight smile was infuriating in its confidence. You're a fighter, Miss Bayonetta. a protector, despite your protestations otherwise. This world has monsters that prey on innocence and an ancient evil that threatens all life. Where else would you go? The witch wanted to argue, to insist she owed this dimension nothing, that her only goal was finding a way home. But she thought of Ruby's earnest enthusiasm, of the Grimm dissolving under her bullets, of the sheer wrongness of soulless creatures spawning from pools of darkness. "One lecture," she conceded. "Then we'll see." The faculty quarters were Spartan but serviceable. A bed she wouldn't use much, a desk with a view of the courtyard, and a private bathroom that actually met her standards. Bayonetta had just finished examining the room's defensive positions. Old habits died hard when someone knocked. "It's Ruby and Weiss and Yang and Blake. Can we come in?" The witch opened the door to find Team RWBY arranged in the hallway like a particularly determined, welcoming committee. Ruby bounced on her heels. Weiss looked resigned. Yang grinned with barely contained curiosity, and Blake held a book that was definitely not standard academy reading. "Ladies," Bayonetta greeted, "to what do I owe this morning ambush?" "We brought breakfast." Ruby thrust forward a tray laden with what appeared to be cafeteria food elevated to art through sheer enthusiasm. "And we wanted to ask about your weapons and your fighting style, and if you're going to be a professor, because that would be so cool." "Ruby, breathe," Yang interrupted. "What my sister is trying to say is that we've never seen anything like your combat style. The temporal manipulation alone would revolutionize close quarters theory." Blake spoke quietly from behind her book. "Dimensional theory and you, a primer. And your comment about other dimensions, I've been reading. It's theoretically possible through dust reactions, but no one's ever proven it, if you're really from elsewhere. It would rewrite our understanding of reality." Weiss finished, her intellectual curiosity clearly warring with her sense of propriety, which is significant. Bayonetta regarded the 4 young women who'd apparently decided to adopt her through sheer force of will. They couldn't be older than 17, 18 at most. Children playing at war, trained and talented, but still children. Yet Ruby had walked into a Grimm-infested forest alone. Weiss carried herself with the weight of family legacy and rebellion, both. Yang's eyes promised violence to anyone who threatened her sister, and Blake watched the world like someone who'd learned too young that fairy tales had teeth. "Come in," the witch decided. "But I'm not eating that." She gestured at something involving excessive syrup. Cafeteria abomination. What followed was 2 hours of the most bizarre breakfast meeting Bayonetta had ever experienced. Ruby demonstrated Crescent Rose's transformation sequence 7 times, each with renewed enthusiasm. Yang explained semblances with the aid of increasingly elaborate hand gestures. Weiss provided a surprisingly comprehensive overview of dust applications. And Blake quietly corrected several of Weiss's assumptions while asking pointed questions about dimensional travel. "So in your world," Blake ventured, "there are actual angels and demons. Not Grimm or corrupted humans, but genuine supernatural entities." "Were," Bayonetta corrected, examining the Myrtanasta rapier Weiss had allowed her to hold. "The angels became significantly less numerous after I finished with them, and the demons are bound by contracts, not free-roaming threats. Your Grimm are simpler, pure destruction without the philosophical pretensions." "What were the angels like?" Ruby asked, eyes wide. The witch's smile held edges. Self-righteous, heavily armed, and absolutely convinced of their moral superiority. They tried to destroy me as an infant, killed my mother, and spent centuries hunting my kind to extinction. I returned the favor with considerable interest. The room fell quiet. Yang broke it first. "Damn, and I thought my mom issues were bad." That startled a genuine laugh from Bayonetta. "Darling, unless your mother was an immortal witch who fought a divine war and died protecting you, I think I have you beat." My mom's a bandit queen who abandoned me to lead a tribe of murderers, Yang said flatly. So, you know, different flavor of terrible. Blake's hand found Yang's shoulder in silent support. Ruby's expression suggested she was recalculating everything she'd assumed about the mysterious woman who fought with demon magic. Weiss cleared her throat. My father runs a company built on faunus exploitation and barely acknowledges my existence unless I'm being publicly useful. We all have complicated family situations. Well, Bayonetta said after a moment, aren't we a cheerful bunch? Tell me, does Beacon offer group therapy, or do you just work out trauma through excessive monster slaying? The second one, all four answered simultaneously. The witch raised her coffee. Actual coffee, not the cafeteria's brown water substitute, in mock salute. I can work with that. A scroll alert interrupted the moment. Glinda's message was terse. Grimm studies lecture in 30 minutes. Do not be late. Do not destroy the classroom. Do not corrupt my students. Corrupt? Bayonetta read aloud. I'm wounded. To be fair, Blake noted, you did just casually mention genociding angels. They started it. Still, Ruby practically vibrated with excitement. Oh, you're doing Professor Port's lecture. Can we sit in? Please, we have free period and… Ruby, Weiss interrupted. We were going to study Vytal festival opponents, but this is way more interesting than watching tournament footage. Yang grinned. I'm in. Watching Port try to handle someone who out-dramatizes him will be worth the price of admission. Blake simply closed her book and stood, decision made. Weiss sighed the sigh of someone who'd lost before the argument began. Fine, but we're sitting in the back and taking actual notes. As Team RWBY led her through Beacon's halls toward the lecture theater, chattering about professors and classes and the upcoming festival, Bayonetta found herself in the strange position of being adopted. These girls had decided she belonged here. Consequences and dimensional displacement be damned. It was irritating. It was presumptuous. It was against all logic and her better judgment. Almost endearing. Ahead, a large classroom waited. Inside, students were filing into seats while a mustached professor arranged what appeared to be taxidermied Grimm specimens. Peter Port, if memory of Ruby's rambling served. Bayonetta straightened her glasses, checked her guns, and prepared to teach a room full of trainee huntsmen what real combat looked like. Ladies, she purred to Team RWB, shall we give them a show? Ruby's answering grin was all the answer needed. Professor Port's Grimm Studies Lecture Theater had the atmosphere of a natural history museum designed by someone with a theatrical streak. Preserved Grimm specimens lined the walls, a young Beowolf, frozen mid-snarl, an Ursa's massive paw displayed like a trophy, even a Nevermore's wing stretched across an entire section of wall. Students filled the tiered seating in their combat uniforms, weapons within easy reach even in this academic setting. Port himself was exactly as Ruby had described, mustached, barrel-chested, and possessed of the particular confidence that came from decades of survival against overwhelming odds, wrapped in a veneer of jovial storytelling. Ah, he boomed as Bayonetta entered. Our mysterious arrival. Professor Ozpin informed me you'd be observing today. Please take a seat and… I'll stand. Thank you. The witch leaned against the wall near the preserved Beowulf, her posture somehow making the casual stance look predatory. I learn better with mobility. Team RWBY had claimed seats in the middle section, close enough to observe, but far enough back to maintain plausible deniability. Other students whispered, the mysterious woman who'd arrived last night, rumors spreading through Beacon's rumor mill like wildfire through dry grass. Port cleared his throat, recapturing attention. Very well. Today, students, we discuss Grimm behavior patterns and the psychological factors that attract them. As you know, Grimm are drawn to negative emotions, fear, anger, despair. But the mechanisms behind this attraction remain one of our field's great mysteries. He gestured to a diagram showing Grimm migration patterns. In the year 54 AG, I personally witnessed a herd of... They don't have souls, Bayonetta interrupted. The room went silent. Port's mustache twitched. I beg your pardon. The Grimm. They're completely soulless. No anima, no spiritual presence, no internal light whatsoever. She pushed off the wall, circling the preserved Beowulf with professional interest. That's why they dissolve on death. There's no soul anchoring the body to reality. They're animated darkness given temporary form. A student near the front raised his hand tentatively. But we knew that. They're creatures of destruction created by the god of darkness. Knowing and understanding are different things, darling. Bayonetta tapped the Beowulf's bone mask. You treat them like animals, pack tactics, territorial behavior, hunting patterns. But animals have survival instincts rooted in the desire to continue existing. These things don't. They're not driven by hunger or fear or reproduction. They're driven by pure existential wrongness. Blake leaned forward in her seat, book forgotten. What do you mean? The witch's eyes glowed faintly violet. In my world, I've fought angels, demons, and everything in between. All of them had souls, however twisted. All of them wanted something: power, vengeance, salvation, even just the continuation of their existence. Your Grimm want nothing except the absence of everything else. Port's expression had shifted from affronted to genuinely curious. You can sense this? The absence of souls? I've spent my life killing things. You learn to feel the difference between opponents who can be reasoned with and those who must simply be destroyed. She turned to address the class directly. That's your first mistake. You fight Grimm like they're enemies. They're not. Enemies have motivations you can predict or exploit. Grimm are annihilation given claws and teeth. Ruby's hand shot up. But we study their behavior. We know Beowolves hunt in packs, that Ursai are territorial, that patterns aren't personalities. Bayonetta's tone gentled slightly for the enthusiastic girl who'd found her in the forest. Yes, they follow behavioral templates, but it's not strategic thinking. It's programming, like... She searched for a local reference. Like Atlesian robots following code without understanding why. Weiss bristled at the comparison. Atlesian military technology is considerably more sophisticated than... Not the point. The witch cut her off without malice. What I'm saying is that Grimm don't adapt because they're learning. They adapt because the darkness that births them is responding to what works. It's collective, not individual. The classroom had gone completely still. Even Port had abandoned his notes, listening with the focus of someone whose long experience recognized truth when heard. Show us, Yang challenged. You say they're different from everything you've fought? Prove it. Bayonetta's smile was sharp. Professor Port, I don't suppose you have a live specimen available for demonstration. The professor's eyes lit up. As it happens, we have several young creeps in the containment area for advanced combat practicals. Glinda was quite insistent you not destroy Academy property, but she did authorize controlled demonstrations. 20 minutes later, the class had relocated to a reinforced training arena. A single Grimm creep, barely larger than a dog, with bone armor still thin and developing, circled in the center of a cage designed to contain much larger threats. Standard approach, Port explained to the class while technicians prepared the arena, is to use aura-enhanced strength to pierce the bone armor, then target the exposed flesh. The creep's small size makes it fast but fragile. A first-year student should be able to eliminate one in under 2 minutes with proper technique. May I? Bayonetta asked, already stepping into the arena. The cage opened. The creep immediately fixated on her, red eyes glowing with mindless hunger. It charged and stopped 6 feet away, suddenly uncertain. The witch hadn't moved, hadn't drawn a weapon, hadn't even shifted her weight. She simply stood there, and the Grimm's charge stuttered like a video feed buffering. "Fascinating," she murmured. "It can sense I'm wrong. Not human, not faunus, not anything native to this world. The programming doesn't know how to categorize me." The creep circled warily, its movement pattern erratic. In the observation area, students leaned forward. "Watch," Bayonetta instructed. "I'm going to trigger negative emotion. In my experience, Grimm respond to fear and anger, yes?" She let her aura flare. That purple-black manifestation shot through with demonic contract sigils. The temperature dropped. The creep's response was immediate and wrong. It fled. Not tactical retreat, not repositioning. Pure, instinctual flight toward the furthest corner of the arena, where it pressed against the wall like a trapped animal. "Impossible," Port breathed. "Grimm don't feel fear. They're attracted to it, but don't experience. It's not feeling fear." Bayonetta approached the cowering creep slowly. It's responding to something its programming identifies as greater threat than its directive to destroy. In my world, lesser demons react this way when they encounter infernal nobility. The Grimm recognizes predator when it meets one. She extended her hand. The creep didn't attack. It pressed harder against the wall, literally trying to phase through solid barrier to escape. Your Grimm are drawn to negative emotion because they're trying to eliminate the source of the negativity. Destroy the humans generating fear, anger, despair. It's not hunting. It's waste disposal. This world's darkness trying to maintain equilibrium by removing the elements that generate light. Blake stood abruptly. "You're saying the Grimm are... what? Antibodies?" "Close enough for government work." Bayonetta stepped back, and the creep immediately bolted to the opposite side of the arena. "They're not evil. Evil requires choice, understanding, will. They're a function, a very lethal, very inconvenient function of this world's broken cosmic balance." Ruby's voice was small. "That's kind of sad, actually. Sad or not, they still need to be destroyed." The witch drew one gun in a single fluid motion and put a bullet through the creep's head before it could recover from its flight. The Grimm dissolved into smoke. Understanding your enemy doesn't mean showing mercy. It means killing them more efficiently. The class sat in stunned silence as technicians reset the arena. Port recovered first, his laugh booming. "Well, that was certainly educational, if rather more existentially troubling than my usual lectures. Miss Bayonetta, would you care to demonstrate your combat techniques with a more substantial opponent? What did you have in mind? We have a mature Ursa that's proven quite challenging for even our advanced students. Bring it." What followed was less a lecture and more a masterclass in violence as art form. The Ursa, massive, armored, powerful enough to require team tactics from most students, lasted 43 seconds. Bayonetta danced around its attacks with witch time, used wicked weave to pin it in place, and finished it with bullet arts that turned the creature's own momentum against it. "Note," she called out while casually reloading, "the bone armor has directional weak points. The mass distribution means striking from above forces the creature to choose between protecting its head or maintaining mobility. Either choice creates openings." She wasn't wrong. The Ursa had tried to guard its head and lost the ability to maneuver, making it easy prey. Students scrambled to take notes. By the time the demonstration ended, 3 more Grimm had been efficiently dissected both literally and tactically. Port looked like a child at Christmas, already planning curriculum changes. Team RWBY looked thoughtful, processing new understanding of enemies they'd fought all their lives. As students filed out, chattering excitedly, Blake approached Bayonetta alone. "You said Grimm are a function," the Faunus girl said quietly. "Darkness trying to maintain balance, but that implies something maintaining light. What did you mean?" The witch studied her. The hidden airs, the careful distance, the way she asked questions others avoided. "Smart girl," Yes, I suspect your world has an opposite force generating hope. Life, souls. But that's Professor Ozpin's mystery to reveal, not mine. He told you? He told me nothing. I've simply fought enough cosmic battles to recognize the patterns. Bayonetta adjusted her glasses. But here's free advice, kitten. Whatever ancient war's playing out on this world, it's been going on far longer than your academies. Ask yourself why someone would build schools to train child soldiers and call it salvation. Blake's eyes widened slightly. Before she could respond, Ruby and Yang appeared, dragging Weiss behind them. That was incredible, Ruby gushed. The way you predicted the Ursa's movement, and the thing with the creep, and Professor Port already asked if you do regular demonstrations. Did he now? Bayonetta smiled. And what would that make me? Guest lecturer in advanced monster murder? Sounds good to me, Yang said. You clearly know your stuff, and if you're stuck here anyway? The witch considered. Beacon Academy was growing on her despite her better judgment. The students were enthusiastic if inexperienced. The professors were competent if somewhat traditional. And something about this world's desperate hope resonated with her own long war against celestial tyranny. Plus, she'd caught Ozpin watching her demonstration with the expression of someone mentally recalculating strategic options. This world had secrets, ancient conflicts, and powerful forces playing games with innocent lives that she understood, that she could work with. We'll see, she said finally. First, I want to understand more about these maidens Glinda mentioned and this Vytal festival everyone keeps discussing. Ruby's expression turned complicated. The festival it's supposed to be a celebration, a tournament where the kingdoms come together and it's 3 weeks away, Weiss interrupted, which means we should be training, not chatting. As Team RWBY headed off to afternoon combat practice, still arguing about training schedules versus impromptu lecture attendance, Bayonetta found herself alone in the emptying arena. Alone except for the sensation of being watched. She turned to find no one visible, but her Umbran senses, now properly integrated with Aura, picked up something. A presence, distant but focused. Someone observing through cameras or magic or technology she didn't yet understand. The witch smiled at the nearest security camera and blew it a kiss. High in Atlas, Cinderfall's stolen maiden power flared with irritation as she watched the playback. This unexpected variable would need to be addressed. The fall of Beacon couldn't have wildcards. Salem would want a full report. The CCT tower in Vale hummed with data traffic, relay signals bouncing between kingdoms through technology that most citizens took for granted. In a maintenance sub-level that shouldn't exist according to official schematics. Cinder Fall watched surveillance footage for the 7th time, while Mercury and Emerald waited with varying degrees of patience. Play it again, Cinder commanded. The holographic projection showed Bayonetta's demonstration from earlier that day. The temporal manipulation, the wicked weave, the way the creep had fled from her presence like prey-sensing apex predator. Mercury leaned against the wall, prosthetic legs clicking softly. So we've got a demon witch with time powers who makes Grimm run scared. That's new. It's a complication, Cinder corrected, her stolen maiden power flickering beneath her skin like barely contained fire. Everything was proceeding perfectly. Beacon's defenses mapped, White Fang coordinated, Atlesian systems compromised. Then she falls out of the sky and upends the entire equation. Emerald's red eyes tracked the footage with professional assessment. Want me to test her? My semblance could get you killed. Cinder's tone allowed no argument. Did you see how she moved? That's not Huntress training. That's something older. Something that doesn't fit Remnant's rules. The door opened without knocking. Only one person on this team had that privilege. Roman Torchwick strutted in wearing his signature coat and cocky grin, Neapolitan ghosting behind him in her customary silence. Ladies, gentlemen, Roman greeted, tipping his bowler hat. "I hear we have a witch problem, literally, if the rumors are true." "Not a problem," Cinder said. "An opportunity. We simply need to understand what she is, what she wants, and whether she can be turned to our advantage." Neo held up a scroll showing security footage from Forever Fall. The dimensional tear, the purple lightning, Bayonetta's arrival. She pointed at the witch, then at Cinder, then made a questioning gesture. Neo wants to know if witchy there is connected to Salem. Mercury translated the silent assassin's sign language. "Fair question, the timing's suspicious." Cinder considered. Salem had said nothing about sending reinforcements, and her mistress was not one for surprises. This Bayonetta was a genuine unknown, which made her either a threat to eliminate or a tool to exploit. "Emerald, I want a complete background compiled. Dig through every database Watts can access. Mercury, physical surveillance. But keep your distance. If she notices you, claim you're doing tournament prep research." Neo. The diminutive assassin smiled sweetly, and Cinder smiled back. Neo will test her combat responses. Subtly. Make it look like a random encounter. Don't engage directly, just observe how she reacts to implied threats. "And if she reacts badly?" Roman asked. "Then we know she's not aligned with Beacon's interests as firmly as Ozpin hopes." Cinder's expression promised fire and pain. "Either way, we gain intelligence. The Vytal festival plan cannot afford unknown variables." High above, in Ozpin's office, Glinda Goodwitch delivered her preliminary assessment while the headmaster gazed at his kingdom with ancient, tired eyes. "Her combat efficiency is remarkable," Glinda reported, scroll in hand. "Advanced students would struggle with the opponents she eliminated casually, and the Grimm's reaction, I've never seen anything like it. Even Port was rattled." "Port is re-evaluating 30 years of field experience," Ozpin said mildly. "Bayonetta's observations about Grimm as functions rather than entities has implications for our understanding of Salem's forces." "You think she's right?" "I think she's seen things we haven't. Fought wars we can't imagine." He sipped his coffee. Ever present, ever hot, ever mysterious in its preparation. The question is whether her presence here is coincidence, providence, or something else entirely. Glinda's scroll chimed. "Security alert. Unauthorized access attempt on Bayonetta's faculty quarters, thwarted by what the system logged as unknown defensive countermeasures." The intruder had fled before guards arrived. "She's already attracted attention," Glinda noted. Cinder. "Almost certainly. Our mysterious transfer student is nothing if not thorough in her intelligence gathering." Ozpin's expression darkened slightly. "I should warn Bayonetta, though I suspect she's already aware she's being watched." In her faculty quarters, Bayonetta examined the hair-thin tripwire of Umbran magic she'd woven across her door. Someone had triggered it. Someone fast, skilled, and smart enough to retreat when they sensed the trap. The magical signature was faint but present. Illusion-based, deceptive, wrapped in human aura, but somehow hollow. Interesting. A knock at her door, this one from the front, openly announced. She opened it to find Ozpin, 2 cups of hot chocolate in hand. "Peace offering," he said. "And a warning. May I come in?" "By all means." She accepted the cup, noting it was exactly the temperature and sweetness she preferred. Either excellent hospitality or subtle demonstration of his information-gathering capability. Probably both. They settled into the room's modest seating area. Ozpin waited patiently while Bayonetta tasted the chocolate and decided it was acceptable. "You have an infiltrator," she said finally. "Someone close to your operation feeding information to hostile forces. They tried to access my quarters approximately 30 minutes ago." "I know. Cinderfall, transfer student from Haven, currently residing in Beacon's dormitories with her team." Ozpin's calm delivery suggested this wasn't news. She's exceptionally talented, exceptionally dangerous, and working toward goals that align poorly with continued peace. Bayonetta raised an eyebrow. And you allow her to remain because knowing where your enemies are is preferable to losing track of them. Because she doesn't know that I know what she is. And because... He paused, choosing words carefully. Removing her would accelerate a conflict I'm not yet prepared to fight. The ancient war you and your immortal counterpart are waging. It wasn't a question. Ozpin didn't bother denying it. You've worked out more than I expected. Darling, I've toppled divine hierarchies. Recognizing the patterns of ancient enemies locked in eternal conflict isn't difficult. She studied him over the rim of her cup. You're buying time, training soldiers, hoping the next generation will be strong enough to break a cycle you've failed to end for millennia. When you phrase it that way, it sounds almost futile. Isn't it? Perhaps. He smiled without humor. But futility never stopped me before. The question is whether you'll help or hinder. Bayonetta considered. She owed this world nothing. Her only goal should be finding a way home, back to her own dimension where the rules made sense and enemies had the courtesy to die permanently when killed. But she thought of Ruby's enthusiasm, of Blake's sharp questions, of the way Team RWBY had simply decided she belonged. She thought of the Grimm's soulless hunger and the students who fought them with weapons and hope and nothing else. "I'll make you a deal," she said. "I help protect your little academy during this festival of yours. In exchange, you give me unrestricted access to whatever resources might help me find a way home. Ancient texts, magical artifacts, this Maiden power your colleague mentioned, all of it. The Maidens are part of your ancient war, I'm sure. Everything is." She set down her cup with deliberate precision. "But they're also magic, and magic follows rules even when those rules are different across dimensions. I want to study them, not interfere, not disrupt your precious balance, just understand." Ozpin was quiet for a long moment. "You realize you're asking me to share secrets I've kept for thousands of years? And you're asking me to fight in a war that isn't mine." "Touché." He stood, extending his hand. "Very well. You have a deal, Miss Bayonetta. Guard my students during the Vytal festival, and I'll share what knowledge I have about the magical forces that shape our world. Perhaps between your experience and my accumulated wisdom, we'll both find answers." They shook on it, two ancient warriors recognizing kindred spirits across dimensional boundaries. After Ozpin left, Bayonetta stood at her window watching students train in the courtyard below. Team RWBY was sparring, Ruby's speed against Yang's power, Weiss's precision against Blake's cunning. They were good. Better than good. But they were still children playing at war, unaware of the conspiracy coiling around them like a serpent. Her scroll chimed. A message from an unknown number. "Looking forward to meeting you properly. The festival will be such fun. C." The witch smiled. So Cinder wanted to play games. She'd built her reputation on being the most dangerous piece on the board. Time to remind everyone why you don't threaten an Umbra Witch. She pulled up Beacon's tournament registration system. If Cinder was planning something during the Vytal festival, the best place to observe would be from inside the competition itself. Her fingers moved across the holographic interface, filing the paperwork to register as an independent combatant. Glinda would have an aneurysm. Ozpin would probably find it amusing. The students would be delighted. And Cinder would learn that introducing chaos into carefully laid plans worked both ways. Below in the courtyard, Ruby looked up at the faculty building and waved enthusiastically. Bayonetta waved back, surprising herself with the genuine affection in the gesture. This world was growing on her. These children were growing on her. And if some ancient evil thought it could destroy what they were building here, it would learn the same lesson the angels had learned millennia ago in another dimension. The Umbra Witch does not lose. She only chooses when to win. The Vytal festival transformed Beacon Academy into something between carnival and proving ground. Banners from all 4 kingdoms draped the amphitheater. Vendors hawked everything from weapon modifications to commemorative plushies, and the air crackled with anticipation that had nothing to do with dust. Bayonetta stood in the competitor registration area, surrounded by huntsmen and huntresses decades younger, watching Glinda's face cycle through 7 distinct stages of professional dismay. "You registered," the professor said flatly, "as an independent combatant, without academy affiliation, without partner, without informing me beforehand." I informed Ozpin, who found it interesting and approved it immediately, I'm sure. Glinda's riding crop tapped against her tablet with increasing tempo. "Do you have any idea how this complicates the bracket arrangements?" "Not particularly." Bayonetta adjusted her glasses. "I fight whoever you put in front of me, darling. Isn't that the point?" Before Glinda could respond, a commotion erupted near the main entrance. Team RWBY had arrived, with Ruby practically vibrating as she spotted Bayonetta's name on the registration board. "You're competing?" The scythe wielder's shriek carried across the entire venue. "That's so cool. Wait, does that mean we might fight each other? I mean, I'd lose obviously, but fighting you would be amazing." "Ruby, breathe," Weiss commanded, though her own eyes sparkled with competitive interest. "Miss Bayonetta, surely you realize the tournament is designed for teams and pairs. Singles matches are rare which is precisely why I registered for both brackets." The witch smiled at Glinda's barely suppressed groan. "Adaptability, Miss Schnee. Surely they teach that at your prestigious academy." Yang laughed, slinging an arm around Blake's shoulders. "I like her. She's got style." Blake's response was cut off by the arrival of Team JNPR. John looking perpetually confused, Nora bouncing with characteristic energy, Ren maintaining his usual calm, and Pira Nikos radiating the quiet confidence of Mistral's tournament champion. "So the rumors are true," Pira said, extending her hand. "The mysterious professor is joining the competition." "I'm Pira. John's told me about your lecture on Grimm psychology. It was fascinating." Bayonetta shook her hand, noting the exceptional strength hidden behind graceful deportment. "You're the one with the polarity semblance. Interesting application of magnetic manipulation. You can tell just by..." "I've fought enough metal manipulators to recognize the stance." The witch's smile gained edges. "You fight like someone trained to win, not just survive. Olympic combat? Mistral regional tournament, 4 consecutive years." Pira's humility was genuine, but couldn't hide pride in the accomplishment. "Though I suspect your experience makes mine look rather limited. Different contexts, darling. You've mastered your world's combat framework. I'm still adapting to it." Bayonetta glanced at the arena where the first matches were beginning. "Tell me, is that broadcast set up standard?" She pointed to the massive screens showing live feeds to audiences across Remnant. Pira nodded. "The CCT network broadcasts all major matches. It's meant to promote unity between kingdoms, show that cooperation produces stronger fighters than isolation." How very optimistic. The witch's tone suggested she'd identified the security flaw before anyone explained it. A global broadcast meant global attention and global vulnerability. If someone wanted to sow chaos, what better stage than one the entire world watched? The first match began. 2 teams from Shade Academy, fast and brutal in the way desert kingdoms bred fighters. Bayonetta watched with professional interest, cataloging weapon types, semblance applications, tactical coordination. "They're holding back," she noted quietly to Blake, who'd somehow ended up beside her. "Conserving aura for later rounds. You can tell. The blonde with the whip blade, Her strikes are calculated for point scoring, not elimination. Smart tournament play, poor survival tactics. Blake's ears twitched beneath her bow. You think like a soldier, not an athlete. Because I am a soldier. Bayonetta's gaze never left the arena. These children are playing a game with rules and referees. Real combat has neither. Is that what you see when you look at us? Children playing? The witch turned to face her fully. I see young warriors with genuine skill trying to make the best of a world that eats the unprepared. It's not an insult, kitten. It's recognition that you're fighting a war most of you don't fully understand. Before Blake could respond, the arena screens flickered. A face appeared, a woman in red and black, elaborate headdress marking her as Cinder Fall. Her recorded message was perfectly crafted sympathy. To the competitors and attendees of the Vytal festival, Cinder's voice carried across the amphitheater. On behalf of Haven Academy, I wish to express our deep gratitude for this celebration of unity and strength. May the best warriors prove that cooperation triumphs over division. Applause. Cheers. Ruby joined in enthusiastically. Bayonetta's eyes narrowed. She'd heard speeches like that before. Pretty words wrapped around ugly intentions. The cadence, the carefully neutral phrasing, the way Cinder's gaze seemed to linger on specific audience sections. That woman, she said quietly to Blake, is planning something. Cinder, she's just a Haven student, one of the favorites to win, actually. Precisely. Favorites draw attention. The witch watched the screen go dark. And attention is the best cover for knives in the dark. Her own match was called Singles Combat against a fourth-year Atlas student whose military precision showed in every movement. The arena floor transformed to a rocky terrain biome, holographic generators creating artificial challenges. Match begins in 3, 2, 1. Witch time activated the moment her opponent moved. The Atlas student, impressive by any standard, found himself moving through amber honey while Bayonetta walked between his attacks like a ghost. Her bullet arts painted patterns across his aura shield, each shot calculated to drain without causing serious injury. The crowd went silent. This wasn't combat. It was a demonstration of the gulf between talented and transcendent. She ended it with a wicked weave that pinned him gently to the ground, spectral demon hand holding him in place while her gun pressed to his forehead. Yield, she suggested pleasantly. He yielded. The arena erupted. Commentators scrambled to analyze what they'd just witnessed. Port's voice boomed over speakers. Extraordinary. A semblance I've never encountered, temporal manipulation combined with, is that hair-based construct generation? Bayonetta took her bow, playing to the crowd because it served her purpose. Let them see her. Let Cinder see her. Let everyone understand that the festival had a new variable that didn't play by established rules. Backstage, she found Mercury Black leaning against her designated rest area, his casual posture not quite hiding the predatory assessment in his eyes. Nice moves, he offered. Very flashy. Crowd loves that stuff. And you're here to scout the competition, I presume? Something like that. Mercury's smile was all shark. Cinder wanted me to extend a personal invitation. Dinner tonight. Team C men plus you. Get to know the other favorites, talk strategy, maybe share some trade secrets. How very friendly. Bayonetta's smile matched his for danger. And if I decline, then you miss out on excellent food and fascinating conversation. He pushed off the wall. But hey, no pressure. Just thought you might want to meet the people who actually have a chance at winning this thing. After he left, Bayonetta pulled up her scroll and sent a message to Ozpin. Cinder's making contact. Proceeding with caution. His response was immediate. Learn what you can. But remember, she's more dangerous than she appears. The witch laughed softly. If only he knew how many more dangerous than they appear enemies she'd buried. That evening, she arrived at the restaurant, upscale Vale establishment with private rooms and security that looked professional. Cinder greeted her with perfect hostess grace, flanked by Mercury, Emerald, and a quiet girl whose rainbow heterochromia eyes tracked Bayonetta with unnerving intensity. "So glad you could join us," Cinder purred. "I've been dying to meet the mysterious witch who's taken Beacon by storm." "Have you now?" Bayonetta settled into the offered seat, noting sight lines and exits. "And here, I thought I was just another competitor." "Please, you're anything but ordinary." Cinder poured wine. Expensive vintage, probably poisoned. Bayonetta didn't touch it. "That temporal manipulation, the construct generation, the way you move, it's not standard huntress training, is it?" "I had excellent teachers." "I'm sure you did." Cinder's smile held calculation. "You know, we have something in common, you and I. We're both outsiders here. You from wherever you came from, me from Haven trying to prove myself at Beacon. It's exhausting, constantly having to demonstrate worth to people who don't understand what we're capable of." Emerald and Mercury exchanged subtle glances. This was a recruitment pitch. "And what exactly do you think I'm capable of?" Bayonetta asked. "Greatness." Cinder leaned forward. "Power that transcends these juvenile competitions. You've seen real combat, haven't you? The kind where there are no referees, no aura monitors, no happy endings. You know what it means to take what you want instead of waiting for permission." The witch laughed, genuine amusement that made Cinder's expression flicker with irritation. "Oh, darling, you have no idea what I've taken. But please, continue. This pitch is almost entertaining." "I'm offering alliance. When the festival concludes and certain opportunities arise, it would be beneficial to have someone of your caliber positioned correctly." "Positioned for what?" Cinder's smile was all predator. "Change." Bayonetta stood, leaving her untouched wine. "Here's a counter-proposal, Miss Fall. You continue with whatever scheme you're planning, and we both know you're planning something. I'll continue preparing to stop you, and we'll see whose greatness proves more significant." The temperature dropped. Cinder's stolen maiden power flickered beneath her skin, barely contained rage at such casual dismissal. Mercury's hand drifted toward his boots. Emerald's eyes glowed faintly red. The silent girl, Neo, simply smiled wider. "You're making a mistake," Cinder said softly. "I'm offering partnership. Rejecting it makes you an obstacle." "I've been an obstacle to better villains than you." Bayonetta paused at the door. "But do enjoy your meal. I hear the fall season is particularly lovely in Vale." She left them with that pointed reference, feeling Cinder's fury like heat at her back. War was coming to Beacon, and the Umbra Witch would be ready. The Vytal Festival tournament advanced through its rounds with increasing spectacle. Team RWBY demolished their opposition with coordination that spoke to months of hard-won trust. Pira continued her flawless streak, each victory precise and unavoidable. And Bayonetta carved through her bracket like a scalpel through tissue paper, her matches becoming must-see viewing across Remnant. But beneath the celebration, tension coiled tighter. Bayonetta stood in Ozpin's office 3 nights before the finals, watching security footage that shouldn't exist. Cinder, Emerald, and Mercury infiltrating the CCT tower. Watts, an Atlesian scientist she recognized from James Ironwood's wanted files, uploading something into the communication network. The White Fang moving Atlesian military hardware through Mountain Glen's ruins. "You've known," she said flatly. "All of it. The infiltration, the conspiracy, the White Fang alliance, and you've done nothing." Ozpin's hands wrapped around his ever-present mug. "I've done what I can without triggering the conflict prematurely. Ironwood has brought his military fleet. Huntsmen from all kingdoms are here, If Cinder acts during the festival, we'll be prepared. Will you? The witch turned to face him. These children you're training, Ruby, Yang, Weiss, Blake, they're not ready for what's coming. They think this is a tournament, a celebration. They have no idea they're standing in a powder keg. And what would you have me do? Evacuate Beacon, arrest Cinder on suspicion? She's done nothing overtly illegal, and moving against her would scatter her allies to positions we can't track. His ancient eyes held weary wisdom. Sometimes the best strategy is allowing the enemy to commit to a course of action before responding. That strategy gets people killed. All strategies get people killed in war. He set down his mug with deliberate care. I've been fighting this battle for millennia, Miss Bayonetta. I know the cost of every choice. The question is whether you're willing to help minimize those costs or walk away because my methods offend your sensibilities. They stared at each other. Two immortal warriors, two different philosophies forged in different wars. I'll help, Bayonetta said finally. But when this goes sideways, and it will, I do things my way. No pulling punches, no political considerations, no worrying about optics. Cinder and her conspiracy face the full weight of Umbran combat doctrine. Agreed. Though I should warn you, Salem's forces are more dangerous than angels or demons. They don't follow rules you can exploit. The witch's smile was sharp enough to cut. Good. I was getting bored with easy fights. The singles finals arrived amid fanfare and anticipation. Bayonetta faced Pira in a match the bookmakers called impossible to predict. Mistral's prodigy versus the dimensional anomaly. The arena configuration was complex, multi-level terrain with environmental hazards, rotating platforms, and dust crystal obstacles that could be triggered for tactical advantage. Port's commentary reached fever pitch as they took their positions. This is it, folks. The match everyone's been waiting for. In one corner, Pira, four-time Mistral regional champion, master of polarity-based combat. In the other, the mysterious Bayonetta, whose unique semblance and unorthodox style have revolutionized combat theory. Pira offered a respectful nod across the arena. Bayonetta returned it, genuine recognition of a skilled opponent. Match begins in 3, 2, 1. Pira moved first, her polarity. Semblance launching metal debris as projectiles, while she charged with Milo, extended in spear configuration. The attack pattern was textbook perfect. Ranged suppression, close quarters follow-up, minimal aura expenditure. Witch time activated. Bayonetta sidestepped the frozen projectiles, but Pira, incredible girl, had already adjusted. The polarity user was tracking her movement even through the temporal distortion, metal debris redirecting mid-flight as Pira's semblance responded to her opponent's position. Clever, Bayonetta murmured, genuinely impressed. She drew Scarborough Fair and opened fire. Pira's shield, a core, intercepted with perfect positioning, the magnetic deflection sending bullets ricocheting safely wide. Then Milo shifted to rifle configuration, and Pira returned fire, while using polarity to simultaneously attack from 3 directions with metal shrapnel. The crowd went wild. This was championship-level combat, 2 fighters operating at the absolute peak of their capabilities. Bayonetta danced through the assault, bullet arts painting patterns while Wicked Weave lashed out to create space. Pira dodged the demon hair constructs with acrobatic grace, using polarity to anchor herself to metal platforms when physics should have sent her tumbling. They fought across the arena's levels, weapons singing their violent harmony. Pira's tactical brilliance met Bayonetta's centuries of experience. The Mistral champion's youth and energy pressed against the witch's supernatural endurance. She's learning, Blake observed from the competitor box where Team RWBY watched. Look, Pira's adapting to the temporal manipulation, predicting where Bayonetta will be instead of reacting to where she is. That's Pira for you, John said with obvious pride. She studies opponents like Ruby studies weapons, always finds the pattern, but patterns could be broken. Bayonetta unleashed a full Wicked Weave assault, multiple demon hair constructs simultaneously, each attacking from different angles while her guns maintained suppressing fire. Pira's aura flared bright red as she defended, polarity creating a whirlwind of metal debris that intercepted most attacks. Most, not all. A spectral fist clipped her shoulder, another grazed her leg. Pira's aura meter dropped to yellow. The champion of Mistral smiled, the expression of someone finally finding worthy opposition, and switched tactics entirely. Instead of defending, she went pure offense, sacrificing protection for overwhelming assault. Milo became a blur as she closed distance, each strike precise enough to find gaps in Bayonetta's defense. The witch's aura dropped to match Pira's yellow level. The crowd was on its feet. Even the professors watched with rapt attention. This wasn't just combat. It was art, philosophy, two warriors speaking a language only they fully understood. "I yield," Bayonetta said suddenly. The arena went silent. Pira froze mid-strike, confusion evident. "What? You've proven your point, darling. This is your tournament, your world, your rules." The witch lowered her guns. "I came here to learn Remnant's combat systems. You've taught me more in this match than weeks of observation could. Victory is yours." Pira stared, then slowly lowered Milo. "That's... you were holding back?" "Not in skill, in ruthlessness." Bayonetta's smile held dark promise. "If this were real combat, I'd have used techniques that would traumatize your audience. But this is a festival, a celebration. You deserve your moment of glory without me shattering it with methods designed for killing, not sport." The crowd's reaction was mixed, some disappointed at the anticlimactic ending, others impressed by the show of sportsmanship, a few understanding exactly what the witch meant. Cinder, watching from the stands, understood perfectly. Her expression flickered with calculation. Bayonetta was more dangerous than anticipated, not because of power, but because of control. Someone who could choose not to win was far harder to predict than someone fighting desperately. As Pira was declared winner amid thunderous applause, Bayonetta made her way to the competitor exit. She found Ozpin waiting, his expression unreadable. "That was unexpectedly generous," he noted. "That was strategy." The witch checked her scroll. Messages from Team RWBY expressing confusion, from Glinda demanding explanation, from Cinder offering commiserations, dripping with false sympathy. Pira winning keeps everyone's attention on the expected narrative. Meanwhile, I'm free to move during the team finals without being the center of focus. You think Cinder will make her move during the finals? Maximum audience, maximum chaos, maximum symbolic impact? Bayonetta's eyes glowed faintly violet. Absolutely. The question is what she's really after. This isn't just about destroying Beacon. That's too simple for someone planning this elaborately. Ozpin's expression darkened. She's after the Fall Maiden's power. The current Fall Maiden is dying, her power destined to transfer to the last person in her thoughts. Cinder has spent months positioning herself to steal it using technology that shouldn't exist. And you know this because I've been guarding the Maidens for lifetimes. Because Salem, the immortal enemy I've fought across millennia, seeks them to open vaults containing relics of immense power. Cinder is her agent, her pawn in a cosmic game played across centuries. The witch processed this. Maidens, relics, cosmic powers. This was larger than a simple terrorist attack on an academy. Where is this dying maiden? Hidden beneath Beacon in a medical facility, protected by myself, Glinda, and Crow Branwen. Cinder can't reach her without triggering alerts, unless she creates enough chaos that your security forces are elsewhere. Bayonetta's smile was predatory. Team finals. When all eyes are on the arena and every huntsman in Vale is focused on the tournament, that's when she'll strike. which is why I need you positioned to respond. Not as a competitor, not as a professor, as the wildcard Cinder can't account for. They stood in silence, two ancient conspirators planning counter-conspiracy. One condition, Bayonetta said. Team RWBY and their friends. They stay out of the worst of it. These children don't need this darkness yet. Ozpin's expression turned infinitely sad. I wish I could promise that. But this world has a way of forcing darkness upon those unprepared for it. All I can promise is that we'll try. Try will have to be enough. That night, Bayonetta stood on Beacon's walls, watching Vale's lights shimmer below. Somewhere in that city, Cinder was finalizing her plan. Somewhere, White Fang prepared for assault. Somewhere, Grimm gathered in unusual numbers, attracted by the negativity Cinder's machinations generated. The witch touched her lunar tear necklace, connection to a mother who died protecting her, reminder of wars fought and won, symbol of survival through impossible odds. Mother, she whispered to the broken moon above, I find myself adopting another lost cause. These children with their impossible hope and their refusal to surrender, they remind me of you. The moon offered no response, but its fractured light felt like benediction. Tomorrow the team finals would begin, and when angels fell, the Umbra Witch would be waiting. The team finals began with fanfare that felt almost mocking in its innocence. Team RWBY faced off against Team ABRN from Haven in the first match, and despite Bayonetta's growing sense of wrongness crawling across her skin like spiritual static, the girls fought brilliantly. Ruby's speed paired with Yang's power. Weiss's glyphs supported Blake's shadow clone tactics. They won decisively. From her position in the shadows beneath the arena, Bayonetta watched Cinder move. The full Maiden transfer students slipped away during the victory celebration, Emerald and Mercury providing distraction, while their leader descended toward Beacon's sub-levels. The witch followed, Umbran magic masking her presence in ways Remnant's aura-based sensing couldn't detect. The medical facility was deep, reinforced walls, multiple security checkpoints, designed to be impregnable. Cinder bypassed it all with technology that glowed with stolen Atlesian military codes, doors opening like she had every right to be there. Inside, a woman lay in a medical pod. Amber, the Fall Maiden. Her aura flickered weakly, autumn-colored power barely contained within failing flesh. Machines monitored her vitals, while keeping her suspended between life and death. Cinder stood over her prey, and for a moment her mask of calculated composure cracked to reveal something hungry and desperate beneath. Finally, she whispered, the power that should have been mine from the beginning. A device emerged from her dress. Atlesian design, modified with technology that made Bayonetta's Umbran senses scream warnings. It latched onto Amber's pod, and the witch watched in fascination and horror as Cinder began to literally steal another woman's soul. The Maiden power fought back. Autumn flames manifested in desperate defense, but Cinder had planned for this. The stolen half-power she already possessed provided resonance, created a channel, made the transfer possible where it should have been impossible. Amber's eyes snapped open, filled with terror and rage and the knowledge of what was happening to her. Her mouth opened in a scream that no one would hear through the soundproofed facility. That's quite enough. Bayonetta stepped from shadow, guns drawn. Witch time activated, and the transfer process stuttered as temporal manipulation interfered with Cinder's careful timing. You, Cinder snarled, Maiden power flaring around her hands. You should have taken my offer. I don't work for amateurs, darling. The witch's smile was all teeth. Whatever you're stealing, put it back. This power is mine by right. Ozpin's little cabal has hoarded it for centuries, choosing who deserves divine gifts like they're gods themselves. Cinder's voice cracked with genuine emotion. Years of resentment, of feeling powerless, of hunger for significance. I've sacrificed everything to reach this moment. I won't let some dimensional tourist stop me now. She attacked with stolen maiden power, flames that burned reality itself, glass constructs that formed mid-air and launched like missiles, heat that would have melted standard aura shields. Bayonetta danced through the assault, bullet arts carving patterns in the firestorm. Wicked weave manifested to intercept glass constructs, demon hair constructs clashing with magical flames in collisions that shouldn't be possible. The medical facility became a war zone. Equipment exploded, walls cracked. Somewhere, alarms began screaming, but Cinder had planned for that too. Emerald's illusions making security forces see empty corridors, Mercury taking out responders, White Fang creating diversions across Vale. "You can't beat me," Cinder said, confidence returning as she realized Bayonetta was genuinely fighting to non-lethally subdue. "You're holding back, trying to capture instead of kill. That's the weakness of heroes." "Heroes?" The witch laughed, and there was nothing kind in the sound. "Oh, darling, I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who's killed too many despots to tolerate another." She unleashed a full, wicked weave assault. Massive demon limbs manifesting from her hair, powered by aura and demonic contracts both. Cinder blocked with maiden flames, but the impact drove her back from Amber's pod, severing the transfer connection. The half-stolen power snapped back to its original host. Amber gasped, medical pod cracking open, and for one moment her eyes met Bayonetta's with desperate gratitude. Then Cinder's arrow took her through the heart. Time seemed to stop. Amber's eyes widened in shock and betrayal. The full maiden power exploded outward, seeking its next host, following the ancient rules written into reality itself. It should have gone to Cinder, last person in dying thoughts, closest in proximity, already carrying half the power. But Bayonetta had learned in her long war against angels that divine power followed rules more complex than simple proximity. Amber's last thought wasn't of Cinder. It was of the woman who tried to save her. The full maiden power surged toward the Umbra Witch. "No!" Cinder screamed. Bayonetta felt it hit. Autumn fire, control over the seasons, magic that predated kingdoms and would outlast civilizations. For one crystalline instant, she felt the weight of responsibility that came with divine gifts, the choice of what to do with power, not earned but given. She rejected it. Her Umbran magic rose like a wall, demonic contracts written into her very soul, creating incompatibility with divine blessing. The maiden power bounced off, seeking another host, finding Pira Nikos standing in the doorway where she'd arrived, following Ozpin's emergency summons. The Mistral champion's eyes went gold-green as autumn power flooded into her, overwhelming, transformative, terrifying. Then Cinder's second arrow found its mark. Pira collapsed, the transfer incomplete. The full maiden power fractured, part flowing into the dying champion, part scattering to find worthier hosts, part simply dissipating into the void between what was and what should have been. "Pira!" John's anguished scream echoed through the facility as he appeared behind her, Team JNPR having followed their leader into danger. Nora and Ren moved to defend their fallen teammate. John cradled Pira in his arms, her aura trying desperately to heal damage that transcended flesh. Bayonetta turned to Cinder with expression gone completely cold. The playfulness, the flirtation, the stylish banter, all of it burned away to reveal the predator beneath. "You just killed a child in front of me," the witch said softly. "I'm done holding back." She moved, and Cinder, despite her stolen power, despite her planning, despite her absolute confidence, felt real fear for the first time. Witch time slowed the world to crawling stasis. Bayonetta's bullet arts carved through maiden-powered defenses like tissue paper. Wicked weave erupted in patterns too complex to track. demon limbs hammering into Cinder from impossible angles. The terrorist was fast, talented, empowered by stolen divinity. It wasn't enough. A spectral fist caught her in the ribs, another in the shoulder. Bullets found gaps in her aura that shouldn't exist. Each hit was calculated, painful but not lethal, disabling but not destroying, because somewhere Ozpin's voice echoed about needing Cinder alive for interrogation. But then an explosion rocked Beacon's foundations. The arena above them, where finals were still supposedly ongoing, erupted in chaos. Grimm poured through breaches in the wall. White-fanged bullheads filled the sky, and hovering above the CCT tower, her image broadcast to every screen in Remnant. Cinder's pre-recorded message played, "People of Remnant, your protectors have failed you. Beacon Academy, symbol of hope and unity, falls tonight. Witness the weakness of those who claimed they could keep you safe." The fall of Beacon had begun. Bayonetta hesitated for one crucial second, torn between finishing Cinder and protecting the students above. Cinder used that moment to escape through a service tunnel, Emerald's illusions covering her retreat. "Go," Glinda's voice crackled over the facility's emergency comm. "We need you in the main courtyard. Grimm everywhere, students trapped. It's complete chaos." The witch looked at Pira, still breathing shallowly in Jorn's arms, fractional maiden power flickering around her like dying embers. At Team JNPR, weapons drawn and eyes wide with terror, trying to be courage. At the facility around them, burning and broken. "Get her to safety," Bayonetta commanded. "Medical evac, emergency transport, anything. The maiden power is keeping her alive, but barely." "What about you?" Ren asked. Her smile returned, sharp and promising violence. "I'm going to do what I do best, kill monsters and shatter conspiracies." She ran toward the surface, toward the sounds of screaming and combat and grim howls. Behind her, Team JNPR began emergency extraction procedures for their fallen leader. Above, Beacon Academy burned. The courtyard was carnage. Beowolves tore through panicking civilians. Nevermore's attacked evacuation bullheads. An Ursa Major rampaged through what had been vendor stalls, crushing anything in its path. Students fought desperately, but they were trained for tournament combat, not war. Team RWBY stood back to back in the center of chaos, weapons singing desperate harmony. Ruby's scythe carved through Grimm, Yang's shotgun gauntlets bought space, Weiss's glyphs supported Blake's assault. They were magnificent. They were overwhelmed. "RWBY!" Bayonetta's voice cut through the chaos. "Get civilians to the evacuation ships. Leave the Grimm to me." The silver-eyed girl turned, relief and terror mixing on her young face. "There's too many. We can't." "You can. You will." The witch's aura flared violet black, power radiating in waves that made nearby Grimm pause. "Because I'm about to show you what real combat looks like." She walked forward into the Grimm horde, and witch time reduced the world to frozen amber. Scarborough Fair sang their 4-part death song. Wicked Weave erupted in patterns of contained apocalypse. Each movement was economy personified, centuries of combat experience translated to perfect efficiency. Beowolves dissolved, Ursai fell, Nevermores plummeted from the sky in showers of dissipating shadow. Team RWBY stared in awe for 3 seconds before Yang snapped them back to reality. "You heard her. Evac now. Questions later." They moved, shepherding civilians toward the landing pads where Ironwood's fleet attempted organized retreat. Behind them, Bayonetta carved a path through the Grimm invasion like a scalpel through diseased flesh. But even she couldn't be everywhere. Students fell, buildings burned, and high above the burning academy, something ancient stirred. The Wyvern emerged from clouds like nightmare given wings, drawn by the unprecedented negativity generated by Cinder's betrayal. It was Grimm, beyond Grimm, ancient, massive, powerful enough that its mere presence spawned lesser creatures from the darkness of its shadow. It dove toward Beacon's tower, intent on perching atop humanity's symbol of hope and transforming it into monument to despair. Bayonetta looked up at the descending apocalypse and smiled. "Finally," she whispered, "something worth summoning for." Her hands began the ritual, ancient Umbran contracts written in blood and demon tongue, pacts made lifetimes ago in another dimension, agreements that transcended reality itself. "Madama Butterfly," she intoned, power building with each syllable. "I invoke our contract. Come forth from Inferno and feast." The summoning circle erupted in purple-black flame that had nothing to do with dust and everything to do with dimensions Remnant had never touched. Reality cracked like glass around Bayonetta, as Umbran magic, forced to adapt to this world's rules since her arrival, finally found the leverage to pull something through the barrier between universes. Madama Butterfly manifested. Not fully. Remnant's laws wouldn't permit a complete infernal manifestation, but enough. A massive spectral form wrapped in butterfly motifs, elegant and terrible, beautiful and apocalyptic. The demon noble regarded the Wyvern with ancient eyes that had watched civilizations rise and fall across dimensional boundaries. The grim ancient froze mid-dive. For the first time in its millennial existence, it encountered something that didn't fit its programming. Not human, not faunus, not even fully native to Remnant. Something that predated angels and made demons bow. Bayonetta stood at the center of her summoning, hair streaming upward as it wove into Madama Butterfly's manifestation, channeling power through contracts written in souls and sealed in blood. Her voice resonated with demonic harmonics. "Madama Butterfly, mistress of atrocity, infernal noble of the third sphere, I name you executor. That creature threatens something I've chosen to protect. Remove it." The demon smiled, expression that would haunt the nightmares of everyone who witnessed it, and moved. Madama Butterfly's spectral fist caught the Wyvern mid-flight. The impact sent shockwaves across Vale, shattering windows in a 3-block radius. The ancient Grimm screamed, a sound of pure rage and confusion, as demon power tore through its essence. "Impossible!" Cinder's voice crackled across the emergency channels, watching from her position coordinating the White Fang assault. "Nothing can physically overpower an ancient Grimm. They're manifestations of pure destruction. Nothing from your world, perhaps." Bayonetta's reply was almost conversational despite the apocalyptic battle raging above. "But Madama Butterfly has torn apart angels and demons for millennia. Your soulless shadow beast doesn't even register as a challenge." The Wyvern fought back with desperate ferocity. It spawned lesser Grimm from its shadow, Beowolves by the dozen, Nevermores by the score, an endless tide of darkness trying to overwhelm through sheer numbers. Madama Butterfly obliterated them with contemptuous efficiency. Spectral fists reduced packs to smoke. Butterfly wing manifestations created shockwaves that cleared entire sections of sky. The demon was holding back. Bayonetta could feel it through their contract, because full power would level half of Vale. On the ground, the battle shifted. Students and huntsmen rallied, seeing the ancient Grimm occupied. Glinda coordinated defensive positions. Ironwood's Atlesian forces established kill zones. Team RWBY fought with renewed determination, weapons flashing in the firelight of burning beacon. But the Wyvern was adapting. Ancient Grimm possessed rudimentary intelligence, and this one recognized that Madama Butterfly was anchored through Bayonetta. It changed tactics, sending waves of lesser Grimm at the witch while it maneuvered for position. "Clever beast," Bayonetta noted. Bullet arts, reducing the approaching horde to dissipating shadows, but ultimately futile. She was wrong. The Wyvern's real target wasn't her. It was the tower. The creature dove with suicidal determination, accepting Madama Butterfly's devastating strikes in exchange for reaching Beacon's spire. When it landed, bone talons gripping stone, its presence alone spawned Grimm pools across the academy grounds. And then it began to petrify. No, no, no! Ozpin's voice over emergency channels, genuine fear breaking his usual control. It's freezing itself, creating a permanent beacon for Grimm. Bayonetta understood immediately. The Wyvern wasn't trying to win, it was sacrificing itself to create an eternal monument to Beacon's fall. As long as the petrified Grimm sat atop the tower, negative emotions would draw monsters to this place forever. Madama Butterfly, pull it down, the demon tried. Spectral hands tore at stone becoming Grimm, attempting to rip the ancient creature from its perch, but the Wyvern had chosen its position perfectly. Dislodging it meant potentially collapsing the entire tower, bringing tons of stone down on the students still evacuating below. The witch cursed in languages that predated Remnant's kingdoms. Strategic choice: save the tower and let the Wyvern petrify or destroy it and risk dozens of civilian deaths. "RWBY!" Yang's scream cut through the tactical calculus. "What are you doing?" The silver-eyed girl had broken away from her team. Running toward the tower with crescent rows across her back and determination written across her young face. She understood, in the way that children sometimes understood truths adults overthought, that the Wyvern needed to be stopped regardless of cost. Her eyes began to glow. Silver light that had nothing to do with aura and everything to do with ancient bloodlines, gifts from the god of light, power that specifically countered Grimm. "RWBY, no," Blake's voice this time. "You don't know how to control..." The silver-eyed power erupted. Light washed across Beacon like purifying fire. Lesser Grimm simply vaporized, unable to withstand the divine assault. The Wyvern screamed as silver eyes struck at its fundamental existence, light burning through shadow flesh. But RWBY was untrained, the power wild and overwhelming. She collapsed, silver light flickering out before fully destroying the ancient Grimm. The Wyvern resumed its petrification, faster now, racing to complete the process before another attack. Bayonetta made her choice. Madama Butterfly, full manifestation. Damn the consequences. The demon's expression through their contract link was approval and concern both. Full manifestation in Remnant would strain reality, create dimensional echoes, possibly permanent tears between worlds. But it would work. Bayonetta poured everything into the summoning. Her Umbran magic, her newly integrated aura, the demonic contracts written into her soul, even fragments of the fall Maiden power that had touched her before rejection. Madama Butterfly grew more solid, more real, manifesting into Remnant with weight and presence that made the air scream. The demon grabbed the Wyvern in both spectral hands and pulled. Stone cracked, the tower groaned. For one terrible moment it seemed like the entire structure would collapse. Then Crow Branwyn was there, his scythe sword Harbinger transforming into massive blade configuration, cutting through the anchor points with precision that only decades of huntsman experience provided. Winter Schnee appeared beside him, her glyphs reinforcing the tower's structure even as they severed the Wyvern's grip. The ancient Grimm came free in an explosion of stone and shadow. Madama Butterfly hauled it skyward, away from the academy, away from civilians, away from everything except empty air and judgment. "End it," Bayonetta commanded. The demon's final strike was beautiful and terrible. Butterfly wings spread wide, each feather pattern glowing with infernal power, then closing like guillotine blades. The Wyvern didn't have time to scream. It simply ceased, dissipating into shadow that Madama Butterfly's power prevented from reforming. Silence fell across the battlefield. Students and Grimm alike paused, staring at the impossible sight of demon-summoned Maid Manifest destroying an ancient creature of darkness through sheer overwhelming force. Then reality reasserted itself. The battle resumed, but the Grimm were fleeing now, their anchor destroyed, their purpose disrupted. White Fang forces retreated in confusion, their carefully laid plans unraveling. As Cinder's voice came one final time across hijacked channels. This changes nothing. Beacon has fallen. The world has seen its protectors fail. Salem's victory is inevitable. The transmission cut. Bayonetta released Madama Butterfly with gratitude and exhaustion. The demon dissolved back through dimensional barriers, contract fulfilled, leaving only the scent of roses that never grew in Remnant and the echo of laughter that promised this wouldn't be their last collaboration. The witch collapsed to her knees, aura completely depleted, Umbran magic exhausted, running on nothing but spite and determination. Around her, Beacon burned. Students wept. The CCT tower stood dark and broken, global communications severed. They had won the battle. But Cinder was right. Beacon had fallen. Team RWBY found her there, the 4 girls dirty and exhausted and alive. Ruby, recovering from Silver Eye backlash, helped Bayonetta to her feet with trembling hands. "You saved us," the girl whispered. "That demon thing, the way you fought, you did what needed doing, little Rose." The witch's smile was tired but genuine. "Though I notice you unlocked quite the power yourself. We should discuss that." "Later," Yang said firmly. "Right now, we evacuate. Ironwood's calling full retreat. Regroup in Atlas, assess casualties, plan counter-offensive." "No." Bayonetta's voice was quiet, but absolute. "Cinder wanted to scatter you, break your spirit, make you run. Don't give her that satisfaction." "But the academy is destroyed," Weiss protested. "The tower's damaged, half the buildings are burning. Grimm could return at any moment, then rebuild." The Umbra Witch looked at each of them in turn. Ruby with her silver eyes, Yang with her fierce protectiveness, Weiss with her barely hidden fear, Blake with her determination. "This is your world. These are your people." Running accomplishes nothing except confirming Cinder's narrative. "She's right," Ozpin's voice. The headmaster approached through smoke and ruin, leaning heavily on his cane. "Beacon may be damaged, but it stands. We stand, and as long as we stand, hope remains." Around them, other students emerged from cover. Team JNPR, with Pira somehow conscious and walking despite her injuries, fractional Maiden power sustaining her. Teams from Haven and Shade and Atlas. Professors and huntsmen and civilians who'd chosen to fight rather than flee. They were battered, bloodied, traumatized, but they were alive. And in Bayonetta's experience, survivors built the strongest foundations. "Then we rebuild," Ruby declared, her voice gaining strength. "Together, because that's what huntsmen do. We protect, we preserve, we never give up." The witch smiled. "Now you're learning, little Rose." As dawn broke over Vale, painting the smoke in shades of gold and amber, the real work began. Medical teams treating wounded, engineers assessing structural damage, huntsmen clearing remaining Grimm, and Bayonetta, watching it all, realized she'd made her choice without consciously deciding. She wasn't going home. Not yet. Remnant needed her. These children needed her. And perhaps, after centuries of war against divine hierarchies and demonic conspiracies, protecting something worth saving would be a pleasant change. The morning after Beacon's fall found Bayonetta in the ruined courtyard, watching reconstruction crews work with the determined efficiency of people refusing to accept defeat. Atlasian engineers collaborated with Vale construction workers. Students wielded dust-powered tools alongside professors. Even the civilians who'd fled were returning, drawn by stubborn hope and Ruby Rose's infectious determination. Ozpin approached with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. How he kept producing them in a half-destroyed academy remained one of Remnant's great mysteries. "You're staying," he said. Not a question. "For now." The witch accepted the drink. Your mysterious enemy Salem, the immortal queen orchestrating all this chaos. I assume she'll take Beacon's survival personally. Absolutely. Cinder failed her primary objective, stealing the Fall Maiden's complete power. Pira survived with a fraction of it, which complicates Salem's relic acquisition plans significantly. He smiled without humor. Your intervention saved more than just lives. You disrupted millennia of careful scheming. Then Salem and I have something in common. We both ruin divine plans for fun and profit. Bayonetta sipped her chocolate. Though I notice you're not mentioning the dimensional tear my full summoning created. The one currently fluctuating in the Forever Fall forest. Ozpin's expression shifted to genuine surprise. You knew about that? I'm Umbran, darling. I can feel when reality gets wounded. Madama Butterfly's manifestation punched a hole between Remnant and Inferno. It's unstable, dangerous, and will probably spawn interesting complications. She paused. It's also potentially my way home, and yet you're still here. Like I said, for now, these children you're training deserve better than being thrown into ancient wars unprepared. Ruby and her silver eyes, Pira with her fractional maiden power, Blake wrestling with White Fang betrayal, Yang questioning whether strength is enough. The witch's expression softened. They remind me of myself, millennia ago. Young, determined, completely unprepared for what they'd face. Will you train them? I'll teach them what I can. Combat theory that predates your kingdoms. Survival techniques from wars they can't imagine. And most importantly, how to make choices in impossible situations. She turned to face him fully. But I won't lie to them the way you do, Ozpin. No more secrets about Salem's immortality, about maidens, about the relics. They've earned truth through blood. The headmaster was quiet for a long moment. Truth has costs. Knowing some things breaks people. Then they'll break and rebuild stronger. That's what survivors do. Bayonetta's tone brooked no argument. You've been fighting this war alone for lifetimes. Maybe it's time to trust the next generation with the full picture. Before Ozpin could respond, Team RWBY appeared, picking their way through reconstruction debris. Ruby carried what looked like blueprints. Yang had a sledgehammer over her shoulder. Weiss clutched a dust crystal catalog, and Blake balanced a stack of books on structural engineering. Professor Bayonetta, Ruby called. When had the witch become Professor? We're planning the dormitory reconstruction and wanted your input on defensive positions. Also, Yang wants to know if we can install a combat training area in the basement, Weiss added dryly. I told her it was impractical, but she insists it's completely practical, Yang protested. We just saw what happens when you're not ready for attack. Built-in defenses make sense. Blake's quiet voice cut through the argument. We also wanted to ask about your demon summoning. If we're facing enemies who can coordinate Grimm invasions and infiltrate academies, we need every advantage. Could you teach us? The Umbra Witch studied them. These 4 girls who'd somehow become her responsibility without her permission. Who looked at her with hope and determination and the kind of trust that came from surviving apocalypse together. I can't teach you demon summoning, she said, and watched their faces fall. It requires contracts written in blood and soul, pacts made with infernal entities, and Remnant's spiritual framework doesn't support that properly. Oh, Ruby's disappointment was palpable. However, Bayonetta continued, I can teach you the principles behind it, how to extend your aura beyond your body, how to manifest your soul's essence into physical form, how to push your semblances past their current limitations. Her smile turned sharp. You each have potential far beyond standard huntress training. I can help you reach it. Yang's eyes lit up, literally flickering red for a moment. Serious training, like actual next-level combat instruction, the kind that turns talented students into legitimate threats. The witch gestured at the ruined courtyard. This attack proved that tournament fighting isn't enough. You need war training, assassination techniques, psychological warfare, all the ugly necessities your academy avoids teaching. That sounds... Weiss searched for words. Intense. It will be. I don't coddle students, I forge weapons. Bayonetta's expression softened slightly. But I also don't sacrifice them needlessly. Everything I teach has purpose, keeping you alive when enemies come that don't follow Huntsman honor codes. Blake stepped forward, bow finally removed to reveal black cat ears openly. When do we start? After you sleep for approximately 16 hours and eat an actual meal. You're running on adrenaline and hope, effective short-term, disastrous long-term. The witch shooed them away. Go, rest, recover. Training begins when you're not half dead from exhaustion. As Team RWBY departed, arguing about meal choices and sleep schedules, Glinda approached with her scroll and the expression of someone drowning in logistics. The Council wants a full report on the demon manifestation incident, she reported. Ironwood is demanding to know if your summoning represents reproducible military technology. Half the students are traumatized, the other half are idolizing you as the demon witch who saved Beacon. And somehow, you've been appointed to the combat instruction faculty without going through proper hiring procedures. Bayonetta smiled sweetly. Sounds like a typical Tuesday in my experience. What's the actual problem? The actual problem is that you're a walking diplomatic incident who answers to no kingdom, no academy, and apparently no god. You summoned an infernal entity over Vale's skyline. Every government in Remnant wants to either recruit you or neutralize you. Let them try. The witch's casual dismissal of geopolitical complications made Glinda's eye twitch. I'm here because I choose to be, training students because they deserve better, and staying exactly as long as I find it interesting. If your council has issues with that, they're welcome to file complaints in triplicate. Despite herself, Glinda smiled. You're going to be a nightmare for my paperwork, aren't you? Darling, I'm going to be a nightmare for everyone who thinks they can control me. But I'll be an extremely effective nightmare who keeps students alive. Bayonetta finished her chocolate. Now, where's this dimensional tear I need to examine? Forever, fall forests' crimson leaves rustled in wind that carried the scent of autumn and something else. The smell of reality stretched too thin, dimensions bleeding into each other. The tear hung suspended between trees like a wound in the world, purple-black energy crackling around edges that refused to properly seal. Through it, Bayonetta could sense Inferno. Home. Her dimension with its angels and demons and rules, she understood completely. Crow Branwen leaned against a tree nearby, flask in hand, bad luck semblance radiating its usual low-level misfortune. So that's your way back? Potentially. If I force it open properly, step through, let it seal behind me. The witch examined the tier with professional assessment. I'd be home, back to hunting angels, maintaining demonic contracts, living my normal apocalyptic lifestyle. But these children have decided I'm their adopted disaster mentor. Ruby looks at me like I hung the moon. Yang wants to learn every combat technique I know. Weiss is analyzing my magic through scientific frameworks. Blake sees me as proof that outsiders can find purpose. She laughed quietly. They've claimed me without asking permission. Kids do that. Crow took a long drink. Ruby claimed me as her favorite uncle. Yang claimed me as the cool drunk who teaches bad habits. They don't give you choice in being family. Just keep showing up until you accept it. Wise words from the alcoholic bird. I contain multitudes. He gestured at the tear. So you staying or going? Bayonetta was quiet, watching the dimensional wound pulse with familiar power. Home was right there. She could leave Remnant's complications, abandon this world's ancient wars, return to being the Umbra Witch who answered to no one. But she thought of Ruby's determination, Yang's fierce protectiveness, Weiss's hidden vulnerability, Blake's quiet strength. She thought of Pira surviving against impossible odds, of John learning that loving someone meant watching them nearly die, of students choosing to rebuild rather than surrender. She thought of what her mother would say, Cereza, who died protecting her daughter, who taught that strength meant defending those who couldn't defend themselves. I'm staying, she decided. Not forever. Just until these children are strong enough that they don't need me. Until Ruby masters her silver eyes. Until Pira stabilizes her Maiden fragment. Until this team of disaster children becomes a team of disaster adults who can handle themselves. That could take years. Then I'll be here for years. The witch smiled. Besides, Salem sounds like she needs someone to absolutely ruin her day. I excel at ruining ancient evil's carefully laid plans. Crow grinned. You're going to fit right in with this dysfunctional family. That evening, Beacon held an impromptu gathering in the least damaged dining hall. No formal ceremony, no speeches, just students, professors, and survivors sharing food and stories and the kind of dark humor that emerged from surviving the unsurvivable. Team RWBY pulled Bayonetta into their circle without asking, and she found herself surrounded by teams JNPR, SSSN, CFVY, and a dozen others whose names she hadn't bothered learning yet. They asked about demon summoning, about her world, about the angels she'd fought, and the apocalypses she'd survived. She told them stories, carefully edited, age-appropriate versions that still conveyed the essential truth. Survival was possible. Enemies could be beaten. Hope wasn't naive if backed with preparation and violence applied correctly. Ruby fell asleep against her shoulder halfway through a story about fighting an angel choir in the skies over Vigrid. Yang covered her sister with a jacket and stayed to listen. Weiss took notes like the story might appear on a final exam. Blake simply watched with those knowing eyes that saw through the bravado to the lonely warrior beneath. Thank you, Pira said quietly, her voice still weak from injuries. The fractional fall maiden power flickered around her like dying embers, gold-green light that would take months to stabilize. For saving me, for stopping the Wyvern, for everything. You did the real work, darling. Bayonetta's tone was gentle. You took a divine power that should have killed you and survived through sheer stubborn determination. That's all you, not me. Still, thank you. Later, standing on Beacon's damaged walls, watching Vale's lights shimmer below, Ozpin found her again. You know Salem will come for you specifically now, he warned. You disrupted her plans, destroyed her ancient Grimm, saved the Maiden. She'll consider you a priority threat. Good. The witch's smile was sharp. Let her come. I've toppled divine hierarchies before. One immortal sorceress with delusions of grandeur won't be my first impossible fight. The difference is that Salem can't be killed. I've tried for millennia. She's cursed by the brother gods themselves, immortal until humanity learns some vague lesson about unity that may never happen. Can't be killed by conventional methods, you mean? Bayonetta's eyes glowed faintly violet. I've encountered unkillable enemies before. They're only unkillable until someone finds the right leverage. Gods, curses, destiny. They all have rules. Rules can be exploited. You really think you can find a way? I think I'm going to have fun trying. She turned to face him fully. But that's future problem. Present problem is training these children, rebuilding this academy, and preparing for whatever Salem throws at us next. About that training, Ozpin looked almost hesitant. I meant what I said about sharing knowledge of maidens and relics. If you're teaching students, they should understand the full scope of what they face. Finally, some sense from you. The witch's approval was genuine. Secrets kept to protect people just make them vulnerable when the truth inevitably comes out. Better they learn now in controlled circumstances than discover mid-crisis. They stood in companionable silence, two ancient warriors from different worlds, watching over children who'd chosen to stand against darkness despite every reason to flee. Below, Team RWBY had started a food fight with Team JNPR. Laughter echoed through the damaged hall. Someone started singing, an old war song from Vale's early days, lyrics about standing against overwhelming odds. Others joined in. The song spread, students finding strength in shared defiance. Bayonetta smiled. This world, these people, this stubborn refusal to surrender, it reminded her of why she'd fought angels in the first place. Not for vengeance or power or even justice. For the right of people to exist without divine oversight. For freedom to make their own mistakes. For hope built on determination instead of granted by uncaring gods. "Welcome to Beacon, Professor Bayonetta," Ozpin said quietly. "Welcome to the fight that never ends." "Darling," the Umbra Witch replied, "I was born for fights that never end. Let's show Salem what happens when you threaten something I've decided to protect." The broken moon watched over them, its fractured face a reminder that even impossible wounds could be survived. And somewhere in the darkness beyond kingdoms, Salem received reports of her failure, of the demon-summoning witch who dismantled her careful plans and began plotting her response. But for tonight, Beacon stood. Students laughed, hope persisted, and the Umbra Witch stood guard over those who'd claimed her as their own. The weeks that followed became a blur of reconstructions and revolution. Bayonetta established her combat instruction program, brutal, efficient, and surprisingly popular among students who tasted real battle and found tournament training wanting. Ruby's Silver Eye training progressed under combined oversight of the Witch and Maria Calavera, who emerged from retirement specifically to meet the demon woman teaching children apocalypse survival. Team RWBY became the nucleus of something new. Not just a huntress team, but the foundation of a generation who understood that the war for Remnant required more than traditional tactics. They learned Umbran combat philosophy, alongside huntsman values. They studied demonic contracts to better understand their own semblance's potential. They transformed from talented students into genuine warriors. Pira's fractional Maiden power stabilized through careful training, and Bayonetta's unexpected insight into divine magic. The champion of Mistral became something unprecedented. A maiden huntress hybrid whose existence forced Ozpin's conspiracy to adapt. The dimensional tear in Forever Fall remained, closely monitored, a potential escape route that Bayonetta visited weekly but never used. Each time she stood before it, feeling Inferno's pull, she chose to return to Beacon, to students who needed her, to a fight worth fighting. Cinder's whereabouts remained unknown, but intelligence suggested Salem was recalibrating her entire strategy around the witch's presence. Good. Let the immortal queen worry. Let her ancient schemes adapt to a new player who refused to follow Remnant's established rules. And when the next crisis came, and it would come, Beacon would be ready. Not the naive academy that fell, but something harder, wiser, forged in fire and rebuilt with stubborn hope. The Umbra Witch had found her purpose in this dimension, not replacement for home, but worthy cause until she chose otherwise. She'd guard these children, teach them to survive what was coming, and ensure that when Salem's next move arrived, it would shatter against preparation forged in demonic wisdom and human determination. Both. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.